in shades of pinks, gets up my nostrils and it stinks. But ere our limbs grow stiff and cold, that old red flag we shall unfold. I've often said that if this process continues, you won't have an annual conference Labour Party. You'll have a convention like the American Democratic Party. People won't come with resolutions but with balloons, and they'll release their balloons, and the leadership will decide the policy. And that was an early indication, I think, of the attempt to blank out any participation by the membership of the party, because they were there as a fan club. Give us money and do what you're told and go and do a little bit of canvassing. I don't think they believe that's very necessary, and we will get there.
The left retained a power base in London, but at Greenwich, a by-election with a left-wing candidate, Deirdre Wood, was lost to the SDP.
This is an SDP colour. Should be a red.
In the run-up to the general election, the memories of Labour's internal divisions once more came to the fore, and the radical policies of Labour-controlled local authorities were linked to those of the party.
Let us be clear that because of our defeat in Greenwich, because of the huge unpopularity of the London Labour Party and councils like Liverpool, and the whole of that baggage that we carried from the so-called loony left, we started the 1987 election not just behind the Conservatives, but behind the Liberal Democrat, Social Democrat alliance as well. That was what our private polls were telling us.
Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Hattersley, Deputy Leader, Neil Kinnock, Leader of the Labour Party.
In May 1987, Margaret Thatcher called an election. The Labour Party was ready. The campaign's opening was worlds away from the disaster of the '83 election. The Liberal SDP alliance could not compete with Labour's campaign. For the first time, the Labour leader had his own aircraft. The leader's team was sensitive to Kinnock's growing difficulties with the press. To escape the close attentions of Fleet Street, he was sent on a tour of the regions where he could indulge his natural ebullience.
The extraordinary thing about that '87 campaign and the success of that '87 campaign was that within a couple of days we'd effectively wiped out the Liberals, and the whole danger of the campaign being about third place disappeared completely, almost before that story got off the ground. And it then became a battle for first place, which is what it was always, intended to be and should have been. And we secured, not just the second place, but we actually secured the survival of the Labour Party.
As time passed, many saw two rival sides in Neil Kinnock's personality. On the one hand, the man his advisers felt he ought to be, the sober-suited scourge of the left, and on the other, the fun-loving extrovert, ready to sing and dance at the drop of a hat. An intensely physical man, he trusted the emotions rather than the intellect.
When the election was declared in 1987, you could almost see the relief that he suddenly felt, I can now do what I was elected to do, which is campaign throughout the country and show them what I'm made of and show them what a Labour government will be like. And he made a brilliant speech in Llandudno, I think that's where it was, at the beginning of that campaign, which suddenly revealed a Neil Kinnock from whom all the cares and the tribulations of being leader of the opposition had fallen, and there he was. He was his own man and could do what he was good at.
I think of the youngsters I meet, 3, 4, 5 years out of school, never had a job, and they say to me, do you think we'll ever get a job? These are young men and women living in a free country, but they don't feel free. I think of the 55-year-old...
The decision had been made to make Kinnock the focus of the campaign. The Labour Party commissioned Hugh Hudson, a British Oscar winner, to make a promotional video.
It was put together like a news programme, really. It was put together as we went along. And since the opening speech of the election was the one up in Anglesey, that speech was so powerful. When you were there, you could just feel it in the hall. People were incredibly moved by it. It was evident that could be a central part of the 10-minute broadcast.
But survive 11 child
I threw the notes away and said what I was thinking. And they filmed it. And Hugh turned it into a brilliant representation of not only what I stood for, but what I think the Labour Party stands for.
Why am I the first Kinnock in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Why is Glenys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Was it because all our predecessors were thick? Did they lack talent? Those people who could sing and play and recite and write poetry? Those people who could make wonderful, beautiful things with their hands? Those people who could dream dreams? But why didn't they get it? It was because there was no platform upon which they could stand.
When I saw it, I was enthralled, frankly. I didn't think that politics could be delivered with such accuracy and such impetus, because Hugh mixed in the considerations of policy and my speech with short interviews with my relatives and people who'd known me many years and so on.
When he became a member of Parliament, his grandfather, Mary's father, said, "That's all very well, my boy, but don't forget that MP means a man of principle."
Neil had a tear about it at the time because he felt so emotionally moved by it, and what he really wanted, he wanted his parents to see it because he felt the loss of his parents very deeply. And I think he just felt that it did say something about him as a warm, loving man, and I just think he wished that his mum and dad could have shared that. So it was quite a moving experience as it happens.
My instincts, when I heard and had described to me the party political broadcast, with everybody clapping and cheering at the end of it, was a terrible sick feeling inside. And I said to those around me, to Tom Sawyer, now the General Secretary of the party, am I the only one in the room who doesn't think that that is a winner? And I was. As it happens, we won the campaign in 1987. If you like, the pools panel in football terms awarded us a 10-0 victory, but the electorate awarded the Tories an 11-0 victory, because what we were doing was appealing to those around us in the media who judged that our campaign, that the party political of Neil and Glenys walking along the cliff tops was a superb piece of presentation. It was. It didn't win us a single extra vote.
The focus was always Kinnock. The image makers, try as they might, could not repress his character and recreate him as a presidential figure.
It was his human side. It was the fact that he was a very warm human man and could behave, and did behave in an outrageous and unorthodox manner.
Love me, love my dog. Nice t-shirt, smashing. Lovely.
And I think what people thought, the people who advised him, was that isn't acceptable for a potential Prime Minister. And I think it probably isn't. And that's why I think everybody liked John Smith, because he was like a Scottish bank manager, and they liked Tony Blair because he looks like a Oxbridge lawyer. But what did Neil Kinnock look like? Well, he looked too much like one of them. He was too ordinary. And they were trying to address that, I think, when they were dealing with Neil's image, but I guess it backfired in some ways.
Neil became very bad in the television studio. He was told that he had to acquire gravitas. My image of him would be of his sitting ramrod stiff, with a fixed expression on his face, waiting for the first trial, as it were, the test to begin, the first question to be asked.
I still don't understand, what did that quote mean exactly about "I would die for my country, but I wouldn't want my country to die for me"? Everyone is puzzled over it.
Yes.
What did it mean exactly?
It's a stark way of demonstrating that the considerations that must affect us in the nuclear age are rather different from those that have affected every previous generation of people and of political